strings. After that, we have our tuning pegs here that are connected to every string. So we'll be using these in just a little bit. And since we're a smaller class too, feel free to ask and stop at any questions. I'm just gonna disable the unmute self. So since I kind of saw everybody and I don't think I'll be fine if you want to unmute yourself too and ask questions as we go. Alrighty, so we have the tuning pegs here that are connected to every single string. And then we also have, make it a little bigger there, perfect. And then we have these kind of boxes here, and we call those frets. So we have fret number 1, fret number 2, fret number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. You can see that mine, my ukulele has the little dots there, and that's for later reference. If you're playing more down here and you don't want to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the time, you know that this is 5, 7, and then 10. In the beginning, we'll just be focusing on these first 3. One of the techniques to kind of hammer or fret is to put your finger like this. It's kind of, it's not right on top, but it has a slight angle to it. And I'm gonna kind of dent my finger here a little bit so I can show you. You can kind of see that it's a little bit above the fingernail, the part that hits the ukulele there. Alrighty, so let's get into tuning our instruments because this is the first thing that you want to do before you start anything. Alrighty, so you can see that it's similar to the guitar, the ukulele top over here, that it has those 4 strings we talked about, and their individual notes that they should be tuned at. So if you look at like this, you can look at your ukulele like this, and it'll be basically be those 4 right there. So I'm gonna start and hit that 4th string first. And you can see that my microphone picked up on this note here. I'm gonna also put this in the chat so that everybody has access to it. It was also in the email that I sent out earlier. So I'm gonna just hit that. And looks like it's just a tad bit high. So I'm gonna push the peg away from it to release some tension. You can also, sometimes the pegs are the opposite way. So just make sure that once you're hitting it, you're hearing it go down in tone. And then we can go up again until we have that G that we want. Alrighty, that's pretty close. Alrighty, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit the next one, the 3rd string right there, and it should be a C. Perfect. And then go ahead and hit the 3rd. It's a little high again, so I'm gonna go down and go up again. When you're tuning, you wanna make sure that you don't go from high to where it needs to be, but a little bit lower and then back up again, just because once you go from high to where it needs to be, that tension is kind of released. So if we go from low to high to where it needs to be, then at least some of that tension retrains itself. Ready? I'm gonna go ahead and do the last one. Alrighty, that sounds pretty good. A little lower and up again. Okay, and you'll notice your ear will start to pick up too if it's really out of place, but it should sound like this after you finish tuning it. And then we can just strum with our fleshy part of the thumb. And and there'll be this very pretty sound. There's also, I put in the link that you can download. If you don't have a physical tuner, you can download in your smartphone or devices an application that's called Guitar Tuner. And the main thing is that it has a guitar tuner, but it also has a ukulele tuner, and it will look very similar to what we have in the page itself. And I prefer actually this one just because it lets me know if I'm in the negative or positive. This one kind of just shows you a little bit, but this one will really tell you, oh, you're way too high or you're way too low. Any questions on tuning? And you should be able to unmute yourself if you want to. Ready? No questions? All right, let's keep going then. So the main emphasis for this workshop today is we're going to be focusing on finger style playing. And that's a little bit different. Usually with ukulele, you'll have just kind of strumming. But for this particular one, we're going to focus on using our individual fingers here to hit individual strings. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So since we've named our strings, we also have to name our fingers too on both sides. So our index fingers on both hands will be fingers number 1, 2, 3, and 4. With the strumming, we actually will have our thumb be number 1 and then index 2, 3, and 4. So let me share this page here. Alrighty, can everybody see this page okay?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Alrighty, so in order to learn this finger style, we're gonna use something called tabs or tablature. Tablature is kind of, I like to say, the karaoke version of music notation. It's way more simplified, and I think that it's great, at least to start off with for beginners if they want to play individual notes. So from here, we can see 4 lines: G, C, E, and A. So if you turn your ukulele kind of to its side, it will match those 4 notes. So the G, the bottom here, this G is actually representing the string that's closest to you or to the ceiling. And then afterwards, it's that C, that E, and then that A. So the very top line is represented of the bottom string, and then this bottom line is represented of this 4th string, which is that G. So to keep that in mind. Alrighty. So we're gonna, let's see real quick. Yes, so for this exercise, we're going to be using 3 fingers here. We're gonna be using our thumbs, our middle finger, our index finger, and then our middle finger. So let's see what we have here. So we have these zeros. And in terms of tablature, a 0 means that we're not pressing anything on this guitar ukulele neck. I keep thinking about guitar, but on the ukulele neck. So in terms of that, we have this 0 on that C, on that 3rd string, 0 on that E, 0 on that G, that 4th string, and then we have another 0 on that A string. And you can see that it starts to repeat itself. So this section right here is the one that just repeats and repeats itself. And since we're not touching anything here, we'll just keep that in mind, that when we're playing that, we don't have to worry about at least this finger for the time being. Alrighty, so let's hover down here. So we have a couple new definitions here. The italics T is representative of the thumb, the I for the index, and M for the middle finger. So we have this 0 here, which is, this is the first note that we're going to play, and then this note, and then this note, and then this note. So we're going to start off with our thumbs, and we're going to hit the third string with our thumb going down just once. Alrighty, so once we have that one down, we can use our index finger, and instead of going down with the index finger, we're actually gonna go up. So we would be playing this string with our index finger going up. So it would sound a little like down thumb and up index. You can kind of get a feel for that and start to work on speed. Alrighty. So now we have those first two notes. And then the third note we have, we're actually going to play with our thumb again. So once we have, we're going to use our thumb and go to this fourth string and again press down. And then for the very final one, we're going to do something similar that we did with the index finger, but this time we're going to be using our middle finger. So after we have that thumb on the third string, index on the second string, thumb on the fourth string, and then with our middle finger, we're going to do the same thing we did with our thumb and flick up. So it should sound a little like this, and I'm just going to increase here so that you can see better. Thumb down, index up, thumb down here, and then middle finger up. And kind of get used to that, making sure that once you're hitting all the strings with the same amount of force, so that there's not like one that's more aggressive than the other. Alrighty, any questions on this kind of very first one? This is a very, I think, a good exercise, just because you're moving, we're not used to moving a lot of our fingers individual here when we're playing these instruments, but it's also just good exercise too. Alrighty. You can do that for hours. Make sure that you don't stump upon yourself. Alrighty. So let's put in some chords on this so that we have a slightly different sound than just doing this all day. So let me go here, and this was also in the chords. Let me just open up my tab here for my ukulele chords. Keep hitting the wrong thing. Ukulele chords. There we go. And this was also in the email, but let me put both of those things in the chat. Since this is the first time that a lot of people are seeing this, this will also be good. And a lot of this stuff, you can basically use for months as a starter guide and kind of work on a lot of this already. So this is a ukulele chart, and this is how you read chords. So a lot of songs ask for chords to be played and then switch into a different chord in a different part of the song. That's the best kind of way I can explain this. But we're gonna have a new thing to learn here. So we have here on the top left, this majors and then minors and then sevens. So we're gonna be looking at this major seven, or just a major, just seven, C, major C, there you go. And it looks very similar to what we have in our hands because we have these 4 lines and these frets. So we're going to be looking at it as if we were also looking at it straight ahead, where the line that's on the right side is our first string, that string that's closest to the ground, and the first string there on the left is the one that's closest to the ceiling. So those are number 1, 2, 3, and 4. These circles at the top indicate that they are open, so we don't have to put anything on them. This 3 indicates the number 3 in your hand, that you're actually fretting hand, and that will be your ring finger. And that 3 is located on the 3rd fret of the first string. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna place our ring finger in the 3rd fret, so we're gonna count 1, 2, 3, and place it down. And then we can just give it a try and just hit that string now that we have our finger on, and just make sure that it sounds, there's nothing like this. Now that we have that note and nothing else is blocking here, just that one, then we can just do a quick strum just to make sure how that sounds. And I'm strumming with the fleshy part of the thumb here. So knowing that, let's go back into our picking patterns. Let's do that in just a second. And we have this C chord. So you can kind of see how that interpretation fits in with this one, because you can see that number 3 that we're going to be working on. So with using this basically the same thing that we were doing, we're going to hold that finger there on the 3rd fret, and we're going to be doing the same pattern that we were doing, meaning we're going to go thumb, index, thumb, middle. And that's a little nicer than just having that with nothing being in there. Alrighty, so let's actually learn how to count this, because counting is very important when you're learning rhythms and patterns, just to make sure that you have the right counting down. So the counts are actually only happening on your thumb most of the time. So if we look at this line here, we have the 1 on top of the first note that we're playing. So we count that as 1. And if there's nothing in between the 1 and 2, but there's a note, we count that as an and. So it would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and it starts over again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So that you can also just kind of pace yourself as you go. Let's see. Any questions on the quick showing of the chords? I'm going to talk about this in a little bit more detail in just a second. or the beginning stuff that we were doing here. Alrighty, so let's keep going. So since we did that exercise using our C chord, let's go into a different chord. So the F chord. So we're gonna go back into our chord chart and we're gonna look for that major F here. So how we fret this with our fingers on the neck is we always kind of go starting off with the index finger. So we're gonna put our index finger, that's that number 1, on the second string of the first fret. So count 1, 2, and then the first string, the first fret here. And when we always want to put our finger right below or on top of the metal plate. You don't ever want to be on top of the metal. So we have our index finger there. We're going to skip this one because there's nothing that we need to put there. And we're going to put our middle finger on the second fret of the 4th string. So let me enhance this real quick. So it should be something like that. So our first finger, our index finger will be on the 2nd fret of the 2nd string of the 1st fret, and our middle finger will be on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. And with any new, and you can, this is now where it kind of gets a little bit more complicated, where we want to make sure that our fingers, the rest of our palm here is not hitting the other strings. Because if it's kind of like this, then these fingers are covering it. So you want to make sure that you have a nice little arc so that everything here is open. Alrighty. So learning that new chord, we can go back into our picking and do the same thing. So again, thumb, index, thumb, middle. Thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle. Alrighty. And then same with that G7. So this is kind of good because now you have reference. Oh, I need to learn how to fret a G7. So let me go into my chords and find that G7 right there, which is a kind of a little tougher chord. So if you want a little challenge, there you have it, because your fingers will be very on top of each other. So it's okay that they can be on top of each other as long as they're not kind of on the way of the other strings there. Anytime we have a new chord that we're learning, just go one by one. Make sure that all the notes are bright. And same thing, you can do the Alrighty, everybody still with me? Any questions so far? We're going to get a little bit more complicated here in just a second. Alrighty, so let's keep going then if we don't have any questions and everybody wants a little challenge. Alrighty. So we have our first song as kind of an example of what we need to, how we can kind of move between those two chords. So we have this F that we do twice, actually 4 times using that pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we switch it to a C. So how do we do that? So we first have our Hand position again on that 2 and 1 to make that F. And we just count it, right? 1 and 2 and 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. After I hit that last note with my middle finger, then we're in C. So after I have that, I have to move my hand and place that 3 right there. So when I do the same pattern, it's not gonna have that sound of the F chord, and then it'll be just do, 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 do. So a little faster would be and then back again. And then you can see that I kind of, it's a little too of a reminder for me. And it's kind of your fingers and your hands are kind of doing two things. So really take your time and go as slow as possible as you need to, because that transition is probably the things that messes up a lot of people. And then for the rest of the song, you can just keep going down, and it's just basically transitioning between F and C. Let's see if I can actually do this. London Bridge is falling. That's way too fast. Anyways, any questions on moving between one chord into the other chord? Alrighty. So with this exercise 2, there are other ones that you can also practice using that same one. And this also includes this one that has kind of a couple faster transitions, or that it doesn't stay in that for that long. So this land is your land, this land is my land, from California to New York Islands, forests, and so on. But you can kind of get the gist of it. I wasn't ready for a performance today, but there you have it. And then a couple other ones here as well. So make sure to, if you like these songs, then you can go ahead and practice these songs, but any song that you kind of find online, you can use the same style of picking for any song, really. Alrighty, so let's say I have a song, but I can't find it online. So this part of the workshop is learning how to find songs that you want to do, because a lot of the times, if we're not actively looking for things that we want to actually play, it kind of doesn't really stick with your memory, and also like the muscle memory. So one of the places that I really love to go for music song searching is called Ultimate Guitar, and I'll put this in the chat. So this is a community of musicians that just basically transcribe the songs into readable form for instruments. There's a bunch of tabs and links and everything, but the main thing that I go at always is the search bar at the top. uh, which is just enter name or song title. So for example, let's say I want to search Beatles song, and we have a bunch of them here. So with like any good social media, we need to search through stars and basically likes and votes. So for example, we have here the rating and the type. So we want to focus only on chords. And there's also ukulele, but chords will work as well. So let me go up here and just filter out all the other stuff. And I just want to do chords. From there, it gives us their most popular songs that people browse and look for. So there's Beatles Yesterday, Let It Be, Hey Jude. So let's just go ahead and just use Hey Jude as an example. And I'm just going to click on the one that has 4,000 stars, just because it's been reviewed more by the community and it's a little more trustworthy with how right the chords are. So let me click on Hey Jude. And gives me the title, the artist, and in style of chords. So also if you play piano, this is great because you can have the piano chords here, the guitar chords, but the ones that we're looking for are the ukulele chords. And you can already see similarities in the chart that we had right there. So there's a lot of chords here, so don't worry about it. So if a song tells you that you need a capo, I don't have one handy on me, but a capo is kind of like a little clamp that you can put in your instrument that just puts it in place in one fret. This enables us to do songs in a different kind of higher octave, or sometimes the songs ask for that. So for example, Hey Jude asks for you to put that capo on the third fret right there. And since we don't know D, we can hover over 2 and it'll show us that D chord in the ukulele. And it's not gonna sound the pitch of Hey Jude just because it's gonna be, we don't have that capo right there, but you can still sing it. You can still hover over. So let's say, just for example, we just want to do that finger style playing of Hey Jude. Be like, Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take what's that chord? Sad song and make it better. So that's kind of how you can use that style of finger picking to kind of use it for a lot of other songs that are not in that packet. Yes. So when we're using the capo, so we have a question: when you're using a capo, do the chords charts given reflect the capo? And yes. So right here, that D will be that D on the capo. So let's just pretend there's a capo on the third fret. So I would be doing that 1, 2, 3 at the 5. Instead of the here. Maybe, which it gets a little bit more challenging when you go a little bit more down. But let's say you don't have a capo, and what do? Well, you can actually transpose this into the not the original, but when we don't need a capo. So to do that, we have this minus and plus at the bottom. So let's say we don't have a capo. So we need to go -1, that's capo 2, minus another one, that's capo 1, and -1 more, because that's no capo. So this should be the same chord progression for Hey Jude, but without a capo. So it should be Hey Jude, don't make it bad. And you can see that they did that just because this B and this F sharp are a little bit tougher for beginner players, especially that uh, F sharp 7. That's a little bit more scarier than your usual chords. But yes, if you don't have a capo, you can transpose this into right there. Any questions on Ultimate Guitar here? Or any questions in general about today's workshop? You remember if I also put the chords into here? I did not, so let me share that um, chords as well. So kind of how you can use this is you can start picking out chords that have 1, 2, or 3 fingers and just practice them. And again, let's say I'm learning to do that E7, just making sure that all the notes are ringing how they're supposed to. See, oh, and before we go, I did not include this one in the email if you want a little bit more of a challenge or a different way to finger pick. So this is just a collection of finger picking patterns that we haven't done yet, but it has the same kind of chart as the other one where P is for your thumb or pulse, I guess, pointer, index in the middle. I don't know what they use P for. Anyways, but then they have different ways of doing different styles of finger picking. Already, kind of wanted to keep this one a little shorter than the other one since it's kind of a lot to take in, and also it's a lot too in the beginning to kind of train your fingers to have this kind of swing to it so that it's not very like robotic. You're making sure that you're a little relaxed and that you're kind of almost moving by themselves. Okay. Any final questions before we close off our session? Alrighty, thank you everybody in the comments. Alrighty, well, I hope everybody has a wonderful afternoon. And since you have my email, you can always email me if you need more resources. As always, we have electronic books. Our curbside is available. So if you want to browse other ukulele books, you can check those out. But yeah, I want to thank everybody. And I will be just here too to respond to the last couple chats. So I want to thank everybody again.